Welcome to the Becoming You Show, where limits get torched and possibility takes the mic. I'm Leah Rowling, human in permanent beta, neurostrategist, mom to 3 amazing humans, married to 1 legendary soul, and your no fluff permission slip to stop waiting. Every week, we rewire brain patterns, smash hand-me-down mindsets, and dive into the daring, identity-shifting conversations most people dodge. Ready to turn potential into proof? Grab your pen. Your next chapter starts now. Hello, my beautiful friend. How are you? Before we go anywhere today, I generally start these off with a thank you, a deep thank you. Thank you for pressing play. Thank you for showing up, not just for this episode, but for yourself. Whether this is the first time here, and if it is, welcome, or you've been walking this path with me for a while, I see you. I see the part of you that's doing the very best that they can. I see the part of you that's tired of pretending you're fine when you're not. I see the part of you who knows that you're not broken, but you might be ready for a breakthrough. So take a breath. This space is for you, not the version of you that performs, not the version of you that perfects, not the version of you that always has to keep it all together. I want to know the real you and talk to the real you, the becoming you, the one who is quietly outgrowing a life, a role, or a rhythm that no longer fits. So today, we're going to talk about something that most people never really name, but almost all of us live at some point. And I really wasn't sure what I wanted to call this episode, but this is what I've named it. It's called identity debt. So I want to explore what this means. What does identity debt mean? Identity debt means, at least for me, and always, I would love for you to maybe after this podcast to maybe write down what it means for you. But for me, identity debt is this hidden emotional and energetic cost of being someone you're not anymore. I wrote a lot about this in my book, That No One Is Coming to Save You. I walked through my entire versions of me being anyone that I wasn't, for all of the humans that thought I should be anyone other than me. And actually, quite frankly, that's unfair to put on them. It was me that thought I should be somebody that I wasn't. So what happens when we get into that place? What happens when we try to call in a future while still acting from our past? There was a moment recently, one that I'll share with you in a few minutes, that cracked something wide open for me. It showed me the ways that I've stayed loyal to an outdated version of myself, even while asking for something more, even while journaling on something more, even while inviting my future in, right? Meeting it halfway, right? It revealed where I've been trying to grow while still gripping roles that were quietly suffocating me. And then I realized, as in most of these podcasts, that I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one, right? So this episode is for you, right? For the high performer that doesn't feel like themselves anymore, right? Maybe for the parent who loves deeply, but is afraid to need space, is afraid to take care of herself, is afraid to prioritize himself, herself. For the leader, right? Asking for more, but wondering why it's not arriving, right? So if you've ever felt like you're working so hard for something that still won't come through, this might be why. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what identity debt really is, what it costs you, and how to release it. Okay, we're going to explore some of the most common outdated identities that people carry long after they've expired, that is this debt that we're talking about. And I'm going to share a free tool that I use with clients every single day to bring their lives, their energy, and their leadership back into alignment. So, what is identity debt, right? As I mentioned, it's the energetic cost of being loyal to a version of you that you've already outgrown. Now, you might have a completely different definition, and I would love to hear it. So DM me, find me, email me. I'd love to know your definition of identity debt. But it's when your words say one thing, but your actions say another. It's when your words say expansion, but your patterns whisper survival. It's this invisible tax that you pay every single day that you keep performing, pretending, placating, accommodating roles that no longer reflect who you are or who you're becoming. And most of us, honestly, we don't even realize that we're doing it because identity debt doesn't always feel like chaos, right? It doesn't always like stop us in our track and invite us to consider, wait, no, we like put this demarcation line in the sand, no more, right? A lot of times it feels like fine. I'm fine. It's all good. I should just be grateful. People have it harder than I do. That's kind of what this looks like, right? We say these things because if we admit that we're not okay, then we have to feel something. And for a lot of us, especially of those of us who lead and who guide and to carry others, feeling feels like a risk. And for a long time, I didn't know how much of my life was wrapped in that exact loop until my 50th birthday, right? I had celebrated with my family. I had received love and messages and so much beauty. But later that day, I kind of found myself alone. And in that quiet, something very unexpected happened, right? And I looked in the mirror and I placed my hand on my heart. And for the first time in my entire life, the first time, and this is the work that I do, friends, like that I've been doing for decades. But I said, happy birthday, Leah. I love you. And I'm proud of you. And I meant it. And I lost it. Not in sadness, but in recognition. That moment cracked something open in me because I realized that I'd never really celebrated me. I've celebrated the birthday. Anybody that knows me knows that I love my birthday. July is my birthday. It's my birthday month. I celebrate it big. I celebrate it with friends. But I never really celebrated me. Me. Not Leah the coach, not Leah the mom, not Leah the strong one, not Leah the wife, not Leah the sister, not Leah the daughter. Just Leah, the human. The woman that has made it through. The woman that is still standing, still choosing, still becoming, still dreaming. That one. And that's when I saw it. That's when I saw it. All the places that I had been living a life that no longer matched who I was. It was in that moment that I recognized, just in the recognition of myself, the roles that I stayed in too long because others needed me there. The I'm fine answers I gave so I didn't have to burden anyone with my truth. The way that I kept asking the universe for more while quietly proving I wasn't ready to hold it. That, my friends, is identity debt. It's not just a mindset. It's an energetic mismatch. You say you want peace, but you're still operating in chaos. You say you want time, but you're overscheduling yourself into oblivion, into overwhelm, into indulgences. You say you want love, but you're still abandoning yourself every time you need something. And then we get frustrated and we wonder why things aren't changing, why that next level isn't arriving. And here's the truth I want you to take away today. The universe, God, whatever you believe in, doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to who you're being. It listens to your alignment, not your affirmations, my beautiful friends. Sometimes what we want can't come through, not because we're unworthy, right? But because we're not prepared to receive it. There's a client that I'm working with literally right now. He says he's ready for more, right? A new store in his portfolio, a big next step. But the foundation isn't steady. There are team issues that are left unresolved. His days are packed. He's exhausted. He's disorganized. There's no room for more. Not in his calendar, not in his nervous system, not in his leadership. This is where identity debt lives, right? We think we're being blocked. But what's really happening is that we're leaking, right? We're leaking energy, trying to hold up an identity that no longer fits. And deep down, we're afraid to create space because space feels like sacrifice. We fear letting go of what's familiar, even if it's draining us, because the unknown feels worse than misalignment. But the unknown isn't a punishment. It's a possibility. The void isn't loss. It's the opportunity of our own expansion. And the only way, my friends, to step into a future that feels different is stop being the version of you who has settled for what's familiar. Okay? So let's take a look about where identity debt hides, because like I mentioned, it doesn't have to be dramatic, right? Actually, what's funny is sometimes it looks like a standard of excellence. Sometimes it looks like loyalty. Sometimes it looks like, quote unquote, doing the right thing. But if you're not careful, it'll cost you a lot of things, right? So when we think about these, the first one that I wanted to bring forward is the overachieving executive. Okay. So he, she, they get results. They're praised for their discipline, their hustle, their ability to get it all done, right? Like they're the ones that people are like, I don't know how you do it, right? But underneath the performance, there is a human in there who's still trying to prove who they are, still trying to prove that they belong somehow. They micromanage everything because trust feels unsafe. Their to-do list becomes endless because they fear that if they stop, they'll have to feel the emptiness that they have been avoiding for years. They say they want freedom, but they are addicted to control. Do you know how I know this? Because this was an identity debt that I carried, that I had to unpack, to rediscover, and to reinvent. So where in your leadership, where in your high achieving, performing behavior, are you still trying to prove something when you could be trusting? There's no freedom in proving. The only freedom that comes is when you've got nothing to prove. Okay. The second is what I'm going to call the selfless caregiver. Now, you'll see a pattern here, friends. I'm all of these things. I have been all of these things, and all of these things sneak in from time to time, but I'm very aware of them when they show up. But I wanted to make this podcast to bring some awareness to you. So the selfless caregiver, right? They're the glue. They're the safe place. They're the steady one, right? They're the kind of mother, kind of father who gave their whole heart, their whole life, really, to raising, to shaping, to supporting their kids, or to supporting their parents, or to supporting their siblings, or whatever it is. For years, they were everything. And now they don't need everything. The kids, perhaps, the siblings, perhaps, they don't need anything. They're grown, they're independent, they're moving on. And he is left holding a love that suddenly has nowhere to go, has nowhere to go. The only way we, they, us, you, me, have ever known how to love is to give and give and give and give. And to step back from that feels like abandonment, right? We know that there's this transition, but we're not taught how to navigate it. But to keep showing up in the same way when it's no longer received feels like rejection. Either way, it feels like a loss. But no one told us how to grieve this shift. No one told us about this transition, right? How to love without disappearing, how to care without being consumed by the expectation that we've placed on other people. We say we want space to rediscover ourselves, but we don't know how to untangle our identity from being needed. We've spent so much time being everything to everyone that we forget how to get to belong to ourselves. I know this because I am this, and I've navigated this transition, and I will continue to navigate it. So the question is, where are you offering? Where are you offering your love, your generosity, your plate to someone, right, who doesn't need it anymore? Where is that? Where is that? And can you do that? Can you give love to them and to yourself without a level of expectation and without abandoning yourself in the process? So I see it show up in leadership. I'll say the nice one, right? I'm going to do a whole podcast on the difference between being nice and kind, because that's been coming up a lot in my conversations. But I'm going to call it the nice girl, the nice guy in leadership, right? They're brilliant, right? They're compassionate. They're deeply respected, but they still feel like they have to apologize before giving their opinion. They still feel like they have to edit their voice to avoid conflict. They still feel like they have to make decisions from fear of judgment rather than truth. And here's the thing. This is that identity debt, right? We say we want influence, but we avoid the tension that influence requires. So the question here is, where are you filtering your voice out of habit, even though your truth is ready to be heard? Man, this one's challenging for me, because I always try to cushion the truth to spare other people their feelings, even though I know that their feelings are not my responsibility. And even though I know the truth is always the kindest thing. This is one that I continue to work on, and will probably always continue to work on. But I'm trying to work on being kind, not necessarily nice. So let me give you a couple more. I think I've got a few minutes. So let me give you a couple more. The past peaked performer. Okay. He was the star athlete, right? The straight A student, the top producer. Your identity was built around being the best, wanting to be the best, aspiring to be the best, practicing to be the best, having the discipline to be the best. And now that they're not in the spotlight, maybe they're not the smartest person around the table. Maybe they're not the most brilliant in their field, right? Now that they're not the best in their mind, they're scrambling, right? To recreate the feeling through comparison, competition, and constant pressure. Again, identity debt. We say we want peace, but we haven't forgiven ourselves for no longer being, quote unquote, the one by way of definition today. We're still defining ourselves based on who we were then, right? Top student, top athlete, top producer in the corporate world. And what we don't realize is that all the effort that was required to be the one required practice. And we're not giving ourselves space to practice our becoming because we're still judging the fact that we're not who we think we should be. So the question for you, love, for me, is where am I still measuring my worth? By moments, by experiences that have already passed. And you could do this in reverse too. You could also judge your past because maybe you weren't that one. Maybe you weren't top in your grade. Maybe you weren't top in your class. Maybe you weren't the best athlete. Maybe you weren't the best of whatever you might deem required for best worthiness, right? And we use that as a reason. That too, my friend, is identity debt because you're not that person anymore. You get to decide whether you were the best or you weren't the best. You get to decide what that best looks like right now, what greatness looks like for you, and define it for yourself. And the last one that I will give you, because it's so powerful, I'm going to call it the gritty one, right? Right? She's tough. You're tough. He's tough. She's survived. You've survived, right? You've pushed through when others would have given up. But now you don't know how to stop fighting. Ease feels suspicious. Rest feels lazy. Receiving feels weak. You say you want abundance. You say you want overflow, but you don't believe that you're allowed to have it without suffering first. You say you're ready, but you're armored. You're in safety mode. And if you're in safety mode, you're in scarcity mode, right? And if that is true, then the question that we ask ourselves is, where have we confused struggle with strength? And where are we willing to let ease be part of our story? Where are we willing to be like, how easy can this be? How can this be easy? Show me how easy this can be. Friends, these identities are not wrong. In fact, they were once sacred, necessary, preventative, right? They helped you survive. They helped you achieve. They helped you belong. But today, the invitation is just because something kept you safe doesn't mean it still fits. If you want something more, right, you've got to invite that more in by being readied right now. Because the longer that you keep wearing what doesn't fit, the harder it becomes to move. Right? Here's the truth that most people skip. You can't just call in something new. You have to create the conditions to hold it. The love you want, the peace you crave, the freedom you want, that next level of opportunity you've been journaling about, that store that you want, they all have an energetic makeup. And they require you to live like you believe you're ready for them. Not in theory, but in practice, in your space, in your schedule, in your finances, in your body, in your relationships. Right? You've got to be ready before the very thing that you want can come. Otherwise, it could show up and you will reject it. Or you'll fall flat on your face because you're just not ready for it. You want this thing, but you don't show up with the confidence that is required, the belief that's required, the space that's required. If you want more in your life and you can't handle what you already have, that's misalignment. That's misalignment, right? So there's a tool, it's a mirror and a map, and I call it the aligned audit. It's something I use with every single client who's in the space between identities, who's ready for more, who's ready for a new chapter, but they're unsure where to begin, right? And here's what I tell them. Don't start with your goals. We have to start with your foundation, because the aligned audit is it's a tool that is built around pillars of your physical space and energy, your health and your emotional balance, money and your financial power, and relationships and relational integrity, right? They allow you to reflect on, who am I still trying to prove myself to? Where am I tolerating instead of telling the truth? And again, this isn't about perfection. It's about congruence. This aligned audit that you will find in the show notes will help you see in black and white where your life is leaking energy, and where it's ready for calibration. Because when you get clear on what no longer fits, guess what happens, my beautiful friends? You make space for what's meant for you. You make space for that more. You make space for that store. You make space for the weight you want to lose. You make space for the wealth that you want to create. You make space for the love that you want to give. You make space. So, if today hit home for you, if you want more and you've been wondering, like, why isn't it coming? Why isn't it coming? We've got to take a look at where you're at right now and get you in alignment in order to receive what's yours. It's there. It hasn't gone anywhere. We just have to ready you. We just have to ready you. And the aligned audit is one of my favorite tools in order for you to see those misalignments, that incongruency, and align yourself with what you are so deserving of. So my beautiful friends, snag the audit. I can't wait to hear how it works for you. I can't wait for your definition of what this identity debt means for you. If you found yourself in any one of those examples that I offered, journal on it, write on it. I would love to hear from you. And until next time, I will see you then. Have a beautiful one. Take care. Bye-bye. If this episode cracked something open, good. Let it. And then head to leahrollingcoaching.com and grab the tools to rewire the story and reclaim your future. It is yours. And then share this with someone who's still waiting to be chosen, still waiting for permission, and remind them they don't need a breakthrough, that they are the breakthrough. Until next time, my beautiful friends, invest in you and keep becoming.